having to yell. That was not how I anticipated beginning the sermon, because the subject matter is serious. We Presbyterians, rightly or wrongly, pride ourselves on a sophisticated approach to religion. Texts as this one this morning are indeed problematic. I got in trouble one time. There was a group of people who wanted to show the film series, the Left Behind series, in this church. I very seldom give them a straight answer, but I did this time. I said no. For it appeared to me that those who enjoy the Left Behind series relish the fact that many are going to be left behind, while they are going to be raptured right out. And I suspect that I fell into then the category of being left behind. And that was all right with me. A time when sheep are separated from the goats. And those of us who are sheep know who the goats are. Look around you right now. Perhaps there is a goat in sheep's clothing sitting right next to you, especially if it is your spouse. Texts like this have been used to cause more church disunity than anything that they've been used in a helpful way. In all of our sophistication, we kind of chuckle at texts like this. A backwards kind of view, we might call it. Or some would just throw the text out and ignore it. But there it is in the lectionary, glaringly apparent. What will I say about it? In the Apostles' Creed, we say that Christ will come again to judge the quick and the dead, the living and the dead. Last century's great theologian R Knott points to a kind of unsettlement in the book of Matthew, a kind of two-pronged perspective. You have this text of sheep and goats, and then you have the lovely text in the 20th chapter of the parable of the people who went into the vineyards. One went in at sunbreak, worked a full day, and got his wage. But there were those who only worked 1 hour and got the same amount as the one who worked through the hot sun of the day. And there seems to be this kind of tension between the mercy on one hand and judgment on the other. Is Jesus confused? Did Matthew get it wrong? R Knott probably was one of the most influential theologians and practical. He really underscored just war theory in time just before World War II. And he creates what I call a kind of Niebuhrian paradox. And it goes something like this. It makes a difference and what we fail to do in life. Both are true. How can this be? Well, let's talk about the first statement. It makes a difference what we do in life and what we fail to do. The analogy used by Jesus in talking about the final judgment of separating the sheep from the goats underscores the fact that actions will be judged. That in spite of the rising tide of moral relativism, most of us know deep down in our gut that some things are just wrong. In the past few weeks, we have all been going through a kind of wrestling and grieving with the problems of pedophilia in Penn State University. And the whole country is in outrage that someone would put the needs of an institution over the needs of a child. That gut theology that we have, we know it is wrong, it is wrong, it is wrong. And yet, at the same time, we're not so comfortable with the word judgment. But I put to you this morning, if you look at it from a different perspective and unpack judgment from a new light, I think first you will see that judgment is a good thing. It is a necessity if you and I are ever going to speak about what is right and what is wrong. If God does not care enough about what happens to people on the receiving end of evil, then why in the world should we care at all? If God does not care that there is a right and wrong, why should we even build laws except for the one fact for a species to survive? Philosophically understood, judgment says to us that actions do matter. Without judgment, can you and I talk at all of the virtue of truth over and against the virtue of deception and lying? No, we cannot. Without judgment, can we say that courage is always better than cowardice? No, we cannot. Because it just doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, pragmatically thinking, a coward just may live longer. Out of history, we are reminded of Cardinal Wolsey, who was the Archbishop in the time of England in the 16th century of the Archdiocese of York. It was the time of Henry VIII. And one day he climbed up into the pulpit to preach. And there, sitting in the pew, was the head of the church, Henry VIII. And he thought to himself, be careful, Wolsey, because Henry VIII is listening. Then he paused. And then that still small voice, objectively we cannot define it, but subjectively often so real, said to him, be careful, Wolsey, because Henry VIII is listening. And Wolsey would not annul Henry's marriage to Catherine of Aragon so that Henry might marry pretty little Anne Boleyn. But in a world where there is no judgment, can we say his action was courageous? Or was it just what it is? Without ultimate accountability, there is no real difference between living a life absorbed in self and living a life of those who lay their own lives down on behalf of another human being. As a matter of fact, the second are simply fools. Every single action has an eternal effect. In 1992, Clint Eastwood directed a movie called The Unforgiven. He starred in it. He didn't win an Academy Award for his acting. He probably never will. But he did win one in this movie for his directing. In The Unforgiving, Clint Eastwood plays an aging gunfighter, Will Money. And Will has given up gunfighting and killing and drink, all because of his lovely wife who too soon dies. But he made the promise he would never pick up that life again. And then some dastardly deeds are done to some women in another town, and there is a great reward that these women put up a bounty on justice. And he and an old retiring friend go off to set even the score, and they run across this kid who wants to be a gunfighter. The only problem with this kid, he is nearsighted. He can't see and shoot anybody. He shoots everything else but the person he's shooting at. So he needs a lot of help. So he wants Will to help him kill somebody. And as the story goes, he finally helps the guy kill a man so he can be proud of himself. He opens up the door of an outhouse while the man is helpless and shoots him to death. And there is this marvelous scene. This young man is saying, I really killed him, didn't I? As he drinks from the whiskey bottle to soothe the soul's pain. Clint Eastwood says this great line. It's a terrible thing to kill a man, for you take away all that he has and all that he will ever have. Our actions are eternal in history. Judgment tells us life, the quality of life matters, that our actions matter. But then again, our actions do not matter. That is to say, judgment and our actions do not save us. You see, there is a massive gulf between the sheep and goats, which are all domestic animals, and God. God is infinite. The good people, the sheep of life, often are only sheep in contrast to goats. If you didn't have any goats running around, you wouldn't even know you were a sheep. People are saints only in contrast to those of us who are not so saintly. If they were not so saintly, they'd just be regular people. The philosopher, 17th century, Blaise Pascal says, great, it's going to take you a while for this to soak in, I promise you. Few men speak humbly of humility. For as soon as we begin to talk about humility, we assume that we are the humble ones. While our actions matter in human history, they are not enough to cover all of our brokenness. As soon as we do the good things that we do and begin to pat ourselves on the back, we've missed the entire point, haven't we? And then you bring up the problem not only of the things that we have done that we know in our gut is wrong, but what about the things we have not done? That's what Jesus is talking about in this particular lesson this morning. The sins of omission. The sick. The imprisoned. The stranger. The naked. The thirsty. The hungry. Oh, well, Lord, when did we see you like that? Well, the least of these. As you did to the least of these, so you did to me. As you did not to the least of these, so you did not do to me. Things that we do or don't do matter in life. Things that we do or don't do don't matter. That's the paradox. Judgment shows us that every last one of us is a goat. An old goat, middle-aged goat, young goat, we're all goats. That's what judgment does. We're all the good, the bad, and the ugly rolled up in one ball. And it's only through judgment that we come to that realization, and then we can throw ourselves on the mercy of the court. The trial, there's the jury that says you are guilty, and then you go to the sentencing phase and we say, oh God, have mercy upon me. And it's on the mercy of the court that we find that forgiveness is the highest form of justice. As a matter of fact, judgment is to get us to that point where we know we need the mercy of God. In the name of the Father, and the Son,